Almost 40% of the vertebrates that live on land in the contiguous United States that we consider to be threatened with extinction have been found to be sensitive to drought. So it's very important in the sense that now we have a good idea of which of these species might be exposed to the largest increases in drought in the future.
The genesis of this was probably a big historic drought in California in 2012, 2016, and that's really where I started, getting involved in drought research with respect to wildlife, and the state of California also was kind of a wake-up call for them.
For many species, we don't really know whether they are sensitive to drought or not, and so we mapped where areas of high biodiversity overlap with large predicted increases in drought. So we may consider these regions to be priorities if we're going to try to figure out what species may be vulnerable to drought and to what extent. One thing that's important to know, and that we look at the average per ecoregion. There's almost 90 of them across the contiguous USA. There might be quite a bit of variability within these ecoregions.
There's also the variability across potential futures. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen by the end of next century. This was a really high-level analysis, so it's looking at pretty much all resident vertebrates across the United States. How this can really benefit conservation planning is to highlight where we think drought is increasing the most, where we need to focus our planning efforts and conservation efforts on this specific threat. It's important for this type of work to inform managers and planners so they can focus on, okay, this part of the country or these group of species are likely to be most exposed to increased drought, so we can start thinking forward about what sort of mitigation actions we should be taking or planning for.
We saw that the Southwest, which in general is already a pretty dry region, will see the largest increases in drought, while it also has the highest diversity in vertebrates. This points towards something interesting, which is that the place with most diversity will also be hit the hardest. So when we looked at the relatively few species for which we currently know whether they're drought sensitive or not, many of those occur in the Southwest. So it does point towards there also being sensitivity of local wildlife to drought. Because drought is relatively common in these regions, it may also be that we have just more knowledge on how the species respond to drought compared to, say, an area in the northeastern USA where drought has been relatively uncommon. There may also be species sensitive to drought, but we just don't know at this point because droughts may not have occurred within that species range very often yet.
The different management strategies, I think, again, are going to have to come back to the life histories of the species that we're particularly concerned about. So if it's those species that are directly impacted by the availability of water in streams and rivers, that takes certain types of responses that managers can do. Some of the work we've done in the past has looked at the response of some mature associated species like the spotted owl and Pacific fisher to loss in forest. During that period, also associated with some pretty large wildfires, we saw a loss of mature forest habitat in those areas, which can really affect some of these species dependent on those habitats. Those two species are not necessarily considered drought sensitive, but if their habitats are going to go through large changes, then that indicates a different type of habitat management, different actions that we need to take to mitigate drought effects.